Welcome back to Court TV Live on a Friday afternoon, approaching 5 o'clock in the East. We're following several cases around the country today as we round out another week here in Georgia. School shooter Colt Gray is being sentenced today for killing 4 at his high school. We're going to go back into the courtroom and pick up more of the sentencing hearing that took place this afternoon there. And in California, rising R&B star David Burke, David, is back in court for day 4 of his preliminary hearing in Los Angeles. Our Julia Dang is there and says the state has a couple more witnesses to go. We'll update you on that throughout the evening as well. Plus, in Ohio, an Amish man has been sentenced for the rape and murder of a woman. He's taken a plea deal before going to trial, and he will spend several decades in prison, but will have an opportunity at parole at some points. For now, let's head back to Georgia. We've been watching the sentencing hearing for then 14-year-old, now 16-year-old Colt Gray. The teenager pled guilty earlier today to fatally shooting 4 and injuring 9 others at Appalachia High School in September of 2024. We're listening to audio from a police interview with Colt Gray right after the shooting.
Too, talking about the thoughts that I had, but they had the preface and context that I was going to get help, which I was. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do so and so. These things.
So
like,
you never, when you told your dad about the voices, you never told your dad about your thoughts to kill people at school?
No, and I say voices. It's not completely. It mostly also transformed into like almost a state of psychosis, of just radical and like unhinged thoughts that I would never think or never want to do to anybody. It just completely like, oh my God, it's completely just takes away who I am as a person.
Have you ever gone to a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that and been diagnosed with having schizophrenia?
No. I have a lot of things. I'm on Zoloft.
What is Zoloft?
My mom gave me my Zoloft because I have really bad anxiety, chronic anxiety.
Is that what it's for?
Yeah, about 50 milligrams. It pretty much just helps. Like,
is that a low dose or is that a high dose?
50 milligrams, I guess, is like a normal dose. 25 milligrams, I think, would be
considered a low dose.
Considered low.
Okay.
It was really bad for me. I'll think about it.
You've been diagnosed with anxiety?
Not by anyone official. That's all I'm saying.
Why do you have Zoloft then?
My mom, she gave it to me. She and my grandma, they knew it would help with anxiety.
Okay.
And it was just, and I hate to shame my parents because they really did try their hardest, but so much of my life was neglected as far as getting the help that I needed.
Okay. Well, tell me about that.
Like the help that I needed, or just being neglected. And
where does he work?
He works at Kevin Price Construction. He's a superintendent.
Okay, so he's gone a lot.
Yeah, and my mom had her own set of issues.
What were your mom's issues?
It's really bad. I can't even pinpoint that. I know it's a lot, but she had really bad anxiety and depression, and she just said a lot of mean things.
What kind of mean things did she say to you?
Like, especially towards the end, about killing us and stuff. Simply duct taping my grandma to a chair was enough to say she's
your mom threatened.
Yeah.
When did she threaten to kill you? Was that before or after the incident with your grandma?
After she tied my grandma, I think she tried to get my grandma to drive. She told me that she tried to get her to drive us up here. So she didn't tell me why she wanted me to, but my grandma knew that it was inherently bad. Mm-hmm. So she tied her up and said that I'll just have to kill Colt and my dad. My dad got the gist of it because he's our husband.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, when you say neglect, what type of neglect did you feel? I know your mom threatened emotionally neglected.
I was good physically, just emotionally it was just.
So, kind of help me understand that. Does that mean that they didn't pay attention to you a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh. But towards the end, it's good to keep a note that my dad did take note of my, the thoughts I had, schizophrenia and stuff, which most of it I don't think is schizophrenia. I know there's people after me trying to hurt me, which greatly contributed to this, obviously. I would never do something like this.
So you mentioned, how long, did you say the voices have been here about a month?
No, they did longer, but they just had heightened. Like, I've just had really bad mania. And
How long do you think the voices have been here?
It's hard to pinpoint. It came and go. They came and went, but like it was mainly just whispers and family members for months now. Honestly, I don't know if it's an exact year, but just all the trauma and stuff just kind of recluse, and it just really didn't help with the obvious mental illnesses that I was developing.
Well, you said mental illnesses, like plural. What mental illnesses do you think that you have?
I made a list a while back. I think it's gone, but
Made a list where, like in a notebook or a phone?
Text pad, I think, on my computer.
Text pad.
Dude.
What?
Did you say something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Were you trying to say something?
Oh no, it's just this, man. I'm fucking horrible.
How have things been at home with your dad?
They've been good. We have our arguments here and there, but
What do you guys argue about?
just the things in him. I argue with him, about just not taking proper measures, being, a good parent. And he definitely tries his hardest, I know, but it's just, I have some drama or stuff that really just doesn't help good with him being, supportive and all, like being completely, competent, which he is a good parent. I love him with all my heart, especially towards the end. I think he finally realized what was up, but I think he was so used to me just being that young, right boy, dude.
That young what?
The young, right, innocent boy, and then so quickly just had these things that just, the trauma just recludes me to the state of just, I don't even know. Oh my God.
Is that how you see yourself?
Me? Yes. Me. It's hard for me to ever forget my little sane or not, medicated or not.
So, you said you've been thinking about doing this for a while.
The shooting, a while, as in like it popped up, for like a few months, but not as severe as it was. It was only after the symptoms and illnesses popped up that it really it's almost like the teachers and stuff that kind of leased onto it, and like whatever these people are, they just took advantage of it, and they knew that I was unstable. And
So, over the past few months that you've been thinking about shooting up the school and killing people, what made it today?
Today, I was told via waves, I don't know, it was something that I know I heard, and it was a multitude of people, that it was going to be sometime soon. It was either going to be possibly today, tomorrow, it could be this week. I didn't know. I was scared. And that kind of formulated into like I wanted to get help, but it like I said, with that, it was just, it formulated into them. It's kind of weird because not like whispers specifically, but just the teachers, because I know like them and some like.
Have you talked to the school counselors here about the voices that you hear?
I have once. I went like a week ago.
A week ago?
Yeah.
What did they say?
She just called my parents and just kind of listened. She didn't really give me much advice, but she did say it take as long as I need, like if I feel unstable, which I did, and I'm glad I took that route.
Did you tell her that you felt unstable?
Yeah, at that time, and that's when it just.
Do you remember the counselor that you talked to?
I know she was African American. I don't remember though.
Okay. African American. So there wasn't. It was the voices that told you today was the day.
Not only that, it was like kind of a 50-50 possibly. From what I can gather from it was that, and the teachers, whispering subtly and having like, and having people like inside the classroom.
When you went to go talk to the counselor, did you tell the counselor about the teachers?
Yeah, I did. I told her that I thought, and I also told people online that I thought my teachers were plotting against me. They also tried to tell me down, but I know I'm not insane. I know they were. And when you have stuff like that goes on, it makes you resort to shit like this, and it's pretty obvious.
Remind me what the teachers were saying to you.
All right, let's slip in a commercial break. We'll get back to Georgia in a bit, but when we come back, we'll talk about Plymouth, Massachusetts, the case against Lindsay Clancy. We watched the dramatic jury selection play out all week. They have a jury opening statements on Monday. We'll preview that when we return. Stay with us.
And everybody ran into the corner, and the next thing you know, I just start hearing gunshots like crazy.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today.
He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school.
Good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Colt Gray?
Yes, sir.
A little glimpse of Colt Gray's first court appearance. Today is going to be his last. Well, actually, it's extended into Monday, the sentencing. He pled guilty earlier today in the state of Georgia. We're going to get back to that in just a bit, but we're going to pick up with those police interviews. But right now, we're going to focus on Massachusetts. We have some new developments in the Lindsay Clancy case, and then we're looking forward to Monday's opening statements in a case that a lot of us are very interested in. The judge today has sided with Clancy's husband, Patrick, in a motion his attorneys argued yesterday to keep his 911 call, which is pretty standard in most cases, but it's going to be kept from the public. Before we discuss it, let's take a listen to some of those arguments yesterday.
When EMS arrived, he asked them to stay with her so he could go find his kids. The 911 call kept going. Patrick can be heard on the 911 call entering the home and heading to the basement. At one point, he calls out, "Guys." He can then be heard screaming in agony and shock as he found his children. His screams seem to get louder and more agonized as the time passes.
That was actually the prosecutor describing the call earlier in a pretrial motion hearing. The bottom line is it's excruciating. Finds his wife. She jumped out the window. Calls 911 and then says, "Where are the kids?" She says, "Basement." He goes down there and he's still on the phone with the 911 operator and finds his 3 little ones dead, strangled with exercise bands, each one of them. And he's screaming on the 911 call. So the judge said, no, it's not going to be disseminated. The jury obviously will hear it, and people in the courtroom with the cameras will be turned off, and this will never be part of the evidence. It'll be basically sealed. Let's talk about it. Talk about that ruling, and then also we'll look forward to the opening statements. With us today, this hour, trial attorneys Nima Rahmani and Silva, Megerditchian. Hello, both of you. This is a big case out in Boston, and we've been looking forward to it. Let's start with this judge's ruling here. 911 call, usually that's, we usually have it, the media, Court TV, well before it even goes to trial. Patrick Clancy came in and argued and said, this is going to be harmful to my family and to me. Your thoughts on the ruling? Silva, you first.
Okay, first of all, Ted, thank you so much for having me on. Nima, I adore you and respect you so much, so it's an honor to be here tonight. Look, Ted, I think it was the right ruling. Honestly, the judge has to balance the probative value, the prejudicial value, but also this is the only surviving, other than, Lindsay herself, her husband is making this request not only for his well-being, but for the memory of his children. He cites all 3 of them when he says how important it is to him for this not to come out. And honestly, it's such an exceptionally tragic case that the judge has to weigh everything involved, and I think also made the right decision here. Honestly, everything that's going to come out in the evidence is going to really be overwhelming. And is that 911 call necessary for the general public to see the pain and agony and trauma that this father and husband is going to experience for the rest of his days on this earth? It's unnecessary and not as probative. So I think the judge made the right call here.
Nima, you agree?
Silva, I love you. I think this is probably the wrong call. I understand morally it is the right thing. This poor husband who's not only lost his 3 children and his wife, he's going to lose her one way or another. She's either going to spend the rest of her life in prison or in a psychiatric facility. But we have fair and open trials in this country, and I don't think there's a sound legal basis to not disseminate. This is an exhibit. Look, we're talking about horrific cases. I'm sitting here in Los Angeles, and they're showing the horrible autopsy photos of Celeste Rivas Hernandez in the David case. And in that particular case, the prosecution of the prelim warned the family, asked them to step outside. So I think there's certain ways to do this. And again, I don't think this is the correct ruling, although the judge did allow the media to report on it. He certainly can't close the courtroom. But I think if something is shown to the jurors, unless it's something unlawful like child pornography or something like that, I think it should be shown to the public. I think that's the correct ruling, even though, of course, my heart breaks for this father and this husband who lost his entire family.
Yeah, I get it, what you're saying, that, and the Boston Globe and other media outlets did argue it unsuccessfully. Honestly, I get the legal argument. I kind of agree with Silva on this. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear this father just being going through what he went through. You can just picture it. It's horrible. Silva, you raised your hand there. You wanted to make one more comment before we move on.
I did. And Ted, look, Nima's absolutely right on the legal aspect. It is true what he's saying about the transparency, which is so part of what we do. But I just think this is such an exceptional situation. Now, in the David case, we still haven't seen, it's been described to us, the grotesque aspect of the Celeste Rivas's body. I think in this case where you do have this man who is already dealing with a woman who had horrific mental illness that he tried to handle as best he could with seeking the help and telling doctors that she's 10,000 times worse with this medication. Morally and ethically, and Nima said it beautifully, morally and ethically is different than legally. I still believe in a case like of this nature, I think the judge did what was right, because at the end of the day, you guys, this is a legal proceeding. It should be transparent, but we see this in other cases where things can unravel so horrifically, it could send the victim, or in this case, the father, into a place that he will never get back from. Again, we all deal with this so much, Ted, when it comes to legal and moral and ethics. In this case, I can't go against what the judge said. I can understand it. And, it just, anyway, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer here, just doing the best you can in the situation that the judge had.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, for the record, Nima is always right on the legal basis. He's never been wrong and never will be, but that's a good point. Let's talk about the openings. On Monday, you have a case where this is all about criminal responsibility. That's the Massachusetts language. Others is it's not guilty by reason of insanity. Nima, most times a defendant tries and fails. This one seems to have checked all the boxes going in, but it still, is it not, a huge hurdle to get 12 jurors to agree that you shouldn't be responsible when you've got 3 dead kids?
Ted, this is a very difficult defense. And like you mentioned, statistically, it works in a very small percentage of the time. And, obviously, the jurors aren't going to know this. There's this misconception that you're going to really just walk free, and that's not the case. But, whenever you have 3 dead children, the jurors are going to want to hold someone responsible. And jurors are ordinary people, and they're going to walk in that courtroom, and we might not hear that 911 video, but they certainly will. We might not see those images, but they certainly will. And they're going to want to hold the perpetrator responsible. Now, I understand why the defense is doing this. Everyone's entitled to a legal defense, including Lindsay, Clancy. And this is really the only possible defense here. There's really nothing else. She's certainly not going to be able to argue that it wasn't me or that it was self-defense. She's going to have to attack the intent. And I think the reason she may, I put the emphasis on may, she has a fighting chances because she tried to commit suicide and she's in a wheelchair and she's paralyzed. I think that's probably the only reason why she's going to have a shot. Now, of course, the defense is going to present lots of testimony about her background, that she voluntarily checked herself into a psychiatric facility. So you do have the buildup, and at least I think the evidence in this case before these horrific, gruesome acts were committed that you don't typically have in an insanity case, where you really have sort of the experts come in for the defense and try to piece it together after the fact. So I think she has more of a chance than most, but I still think if you're looking at the odds here, I think the defense is really facing a very, very uphill battle.
Silva, the history which Nima mentioned, she was hospitalized voluntarily. She was actually told you have to go home, is one part of it. This postpartum depression, which rises, according to the defense, to psychosis. There's also the element of the prescription medicine that she was on, a cocktail of multiple drugs leading up to the homicides. How does that factor in?
It's huge, right, Ted? Because look, we know that, and I wrote them down: Zoloft, Ativan, Prozac, Ambien, Seroquel, 13 medications within 4 months. And when her husband and her were saying, look, the husband said she's doing worse, the doctors actually gave her even more medications. They increased the amount. This is an exceptional case of really what seems to be an overprescription consistently of medications that turned this mom into a worse psychotic condition. And I think the defense is really going to really talk about this exceptional situation. We've seen murders before with postpartum depression, but the amount of drugs, the amount of doctors involved, the amount of prescriptions, the increasing amounts of medications when she was spiraling lower and lower into the psychosis, it's going to be a very strong argument for the defense. But the problem, Ted, and Nima also touched on this, is the fact that there was also a little bit of calculation on Lindsay's part. There was a 54-minute window where this happened, where she actually planned it. And when you're dealing with that level of psychosis, medication-induced psychosis, which Nima and I deal with so much, usually our clients don't have that brain-making time management where they're able to really conducively make this path into murder. It's much more and anxious, right? It's much more not planned. It's very direct and reactive. And so that the prosecution has a very strong argument that, psychosis or not, she planned this.
Yeah. Patrick Clancy, first witness, he has forgiven his ex-wife. He's now moved on and is married, living in Manhattan. Nima, how pivotal is he? The defense has been given some leeway on cross because they don't want to have to bring him back again. But he had a front row seat to the decline of his wife, Lindsay. And it started after the birth of their second child. This, to me, seems like make or break for both sides. Yes, the battle of the experts, but as far as a first witness, tee things off, your thoughts on the importance of Patrick, and what do you expect the defense getting out of him with this leeway so he doesn't have to be recalled?
Ted, you said it. He is going to be the most important witness because he not only found the bodies, he is not only the victim, but he is by far and away the most important percipient witness to this insanity defense, this lack of criminal responsibility. And Silva touched upon it, but to kind of push a little bit further, right? You know, mental health is real, postpartum depression is real, but in most states, to prove insanity, the burden ends up shifting to the defense. And you have to show, because of a mental disease or defect, you don't really understand the nature and consequences of your actions. Basically, you don't know right from wrong. So, you know, obviously, depression, clinical depression, serious depression, that's not enough. You have to be unable to discern right from wrong. And if you're able to really function in society, and she was a nurse, and I'm not saying there can't be some sort of temporary psychosis, but typically, like the textbook classic, you know, insanity defense, it's not even Colt Gray that we were talking about. I mean, you think God or the dog is telling you to do this and commanding you. I mean, again, that's, you know, a little bit of a facetious example, but mental health is not enough. So even if the husband, and by the way, I expect the defense with compassion to come after the husband, because even when we're talking about the 911 call and the pictures of the kids, the defense actually objected. They wanted it to be played in court. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go after the husband, especially if he starts supporting the Commonwealth's position on this case that and it testifies that she's not legally insane. I mean, the defense has to try to save their client's life, or at least prevent her from spending the rest of her life and dying in Massachusetts State Prison. So expect them to be very vigorous in their cross, because if not, they're doing their client a disservice.
Yeah, I think you're right, because she had thoughts of harming their children in another time, in a time period before the homicides, and Patrick was aware of it. He could be pivotal to set that up, and the idea, to your point, Nima, that a lot of us think, we've been told the person who can't discern right from wrong is a drooling maniac who is, just out there in another planet, and she wasn't that. She was very coherent in those moments leading up, calling the pharmacy, calling the restaurant, talking with Patrick, and it's going to be fascinating as we watch it play out. Stand by, let's get a break. When we come back, we'll head back to Georgia. More of the Colt Gray sentencing, which took place today. They have adjourned for the day. They went late, just about 5 o'clock Eastern time, and they'll be back on Monday because they didn't finish. So we're going to go back, listen to more of this interview that was done with the young man, a 14-year-old at the time after the shooting. On the morning of September 4th, 2024, 14-year-old Colt Gray boarded his school bus carrying an assault rifle hidden in his backpack. After leaving class, he opened fire in the hallways before surrendering to school resource officers. And now that shooter has pled guilty to 4 counts of murder. He's being sentenced today. The sentencing hearing began today. It's actually extended into Monday because it went so long. They started this morning in Georgia, heard the impact statements. The judge took his plea of guilty, but no decision yet. Life with or without. That's the decision the judge is going to have to make. Let's go back to the courtroom now and listen to more of this audio interview, which was done by investigators on the scene shortly after the shooting with the defendant.
So we're going to take you and hurt you. And also, I think they were letting the kids in. Oh my God, I'm sorry, dude. That is horrible, man. I just haven't even.
What were the family members? You said some of the voices were family members. What were the family members saying?
They were saying that it was for the best and that I needed to do it. And for a while I knew not to just deter it away. But
who were the family members' voices that you were hearing?
I couldn't make it out, but I knew they were from Hilliard, so I kind of automatically assumed.
Okay.
I know if it helps at all, I kind of like talk to my auntie a lot because she has bipolar and schizophrenia. So I know it's just I like talking to her as a way to cope with it.
Okay. So when you came out of the bathroom and you started shooting, do you remember how many shots you fired?
I can't remember. I'm sorry. Really anything just related to that, except it was just me morally having these. And I'm sorry. I know that sounds like completely just horrible.
And
I've done.
You only brought one gun.
Yeah. Okay. It's only that, I think.
You mentioned kind of, if we can go back to when you moved here, you said you moved here last year?
Yeah.
Do you remember what month last year?
October, I think.
Okay, so you've been here almost a year.
Yeah.
When you moved here, what made you guys move?
My mom and our previous landlord, they weren't really good because my mom was flipping her off and chasing down the neighbors' cars and stuff, really just kind of losing it. And they were all just kind of freaked out, so me and my dad kind of thought it would be best after she had left because we were still there.
Okay.
She had left, so we just thought it would be best if we just left it all behind, just for the better of our emotional state.
Okay. How have things been since you moved here? Is it better or worse?
It's been good. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's been good. Everybody here is treating me wonderfully.
Yeah. How do you get along with your brother and your sister?
Good. I love them.
Okay.
But it's wonderfully, aside from just how it's just formulated to them plotting against me, I know. But aside from that, interactions, they're nice.
Did you start school in August here? Or you just
here? Oh no, I started here like a month ago.
Like a month ago? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you gotten to know anybody here? Do you have any friends here at this school?
Not really. I mean, I just kind of waited for people. I was going to ask this one girl out.
Silva, Megerditchian, and Nima Rahmani still with us. The big question for the judge, which now is going to be on Monday, life with or without 14 at the time. It's got to be a huge factor for when the judge makes this decision. Huge case, very public case for dead. Silva, you first. What should the judge do here?
You know, Ted, I'll tell you something. I've been practicing now for almost 20 years, and juvenile defense is one of my biggest loves. And I will tell you, every part of me does believe that, again, at 14 years old, again, we've been touching upon this on Court TV all day, just about the delayed frontal lobe for children. It doesn't develop until the age of 25, especially for young boys. And the Supreme Court also has a disdain for life without the possibility of parole for children. They allow it in extreme circumstances. In my humble opinion, I do think that he should be eligible for parole because he was so unbelievably young. And you can hear the youth, the inexperience in his voice when he's talking to the police. It really shows, again, parental misguidance. This kid didn't have a chance of becoming something with everything that he was dealing with. That would be the argument that is made when the judge is thinking about this. And if he wants to grant this young boy a chance as when he gets older, I think that is an ethical response to, again, his age and what the Supreme Court has stated in their opinion. So I would think the judge will grant him parole, give him an opportunity and not give him life without the possibility of parole.
How does the fact, Nima, that his father, Colin, was prosecuted in this case factor into the decision, picking up where Silva left off in terms of now what to do with the boy? Your thoughts?
I think it's important, and if his father is anything, he'll show up on Monday and try to accept some responsibility for putting this, rifle in the hands of a 14-year-old boy with significant mental health issues. Look, I have a 14-year-old boy at home, and he's nowhere near being an adult. So, Silva touched upon this, but I'll talk about three things. I'll talk about the law, kind of morality, and what I think will happen. The Supreme Court's pretty clear, even the conservative Supreme Court, that life without the possibility of parole for juveniles, mandatory life without the possibility of parole, is unconstitutional. So that's why we're having this conversation. If this were an adult, obviously he would be spending the rest of his life in Georgia State Prison. His father certainly has some responsibility, criminal responsibility, but we know 14-year-olds, even 13-year-olds in most states, they can be prosecuted as adults, and that's exactly what happened here. If you're talking about juvenile justice, it's really not about punishment, it's about rehabilitation. Can this boy, sometime down the road possibly be rehabilitated? Maybe. But let me tell you what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to get life without the possibility of parole, because this is someone that planned this murder, had a shrine to Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland school shooter, obviously worst school shooting in American history. We covered it gavel to gavel on Court TV. That was almost a death penalty case, and I think there's really no world where the judge is going to stick out their neck politically and give Colt Gray the possibility of parole here.
Yeah, and whether or not it holds over the decades to come, the pressure in Georgia, in this community that went through it, is going to be part of the equation as well. Let's get a break. When we come back, David, the preliminary hearing just wrapping up in the state of California. Lots to report on what took place today as the state continues to reveal elements and evidence in the case for the singer. That's next. Welcome back to a busy Friday here on Court TV, tracking several cases. The sentencing for Appalachia school shooter Colt Gray, we'll pick that up shortly. Also, looking ahead to Lindsay Clancy, the trial in Massachusetts. Openings are Monday, and we will be glued to that. Plus, More details coming out of the probable cause hearing for accused killer singer David. That's where we'll start now. Earlier, we got an update on the David case from Julia Dang inside the courthouse she was, and she came out of the courtroom to give us this update.
What a day. Day 4 of this preliminary hearing, and you're right, we just heard from the deputy medical examiner. He's one of 2 people who actually did the autopsy for the 14-year-old victim, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Of course, she was found not just dead, but mutilated, dismembered, and in a state of advanced decomposition in the front trunk of the victim's Tesla. Now, that was back in September. It took the ME's office about 3 months to actually determine her cause of death, and we heard more about that today. They determined it was attributed to penetrating injuries. But there's a question mark on whether or not they can actually call that stab wounds, because apparently the state of decomposition precludes a lot of answers that we've been waiting for. Her remains were so damaged, they cannot say with certainty what caused those wounds, how deep they went, what the weapons or tools that mangled her body actually were. But we did see photos, and that was new. A lot of the information that was presented today, we've actually heard before in the initial and then final autopsy findings, but the photos, Ted, those were new exhibits. There was a collective intake of breath when we saw, for the very first time, the victim's torso on a silver exam table shot during the autopsy in their photo room. We actually saw her body rearranged, organized the way it should have been when she was alive, and her limbs were intact. It was grisly. It was stomach-turning. And today was actually the first day that her parents, Jesus and Mercedes, who've been sitting in during this preliminary hearing, it was the first day they did not enter the courtroom at all. Now, what was really interesting during the ME's testimony this morning was seeing a close-up photo of one of the victim's kneecaps, and we've reported that her legs were actually cut off at the knees and near the thighs at 2 different points. But we saw one of the close-up photos showing what we've been reporting, little blue fragments.
Those fragments were from the pool that they believe, the state, was ordered by David and used with chainsaws, just rip apart her body. I was just listening to Julia earlier today. I can't imagine what everybody in that courtroom saw today. Those photos, thank goodness Celeste's parents were not there. Obviously, they had a heads up. Silva, Megerditchian, Nima Rahmani, both here, both in California. The crime itself, horrible. According to the state, the wooing of an 11, then 13-year-old, despicable. Butchering a body, next level. Nima, your overall thoughts on what we've seen come out from the state of California during this prelim?
Ted, I'm sitting here in downtown LA about a mile away from the courthouse, and it is horrific. It's really sort of the trifecta of horrific crimes, right? And we haven't even gotten to the sex abuse yet, by the way. Very little. And the 288, as we call it, the Penal Code section here in California, one of the worst sex crimes, lewd and lascivious. I think today's testimony, a horrific testimony by Dr. Ho, the medical examiner, talking about the severed fingers. Celeste was missing an eye, and really it was those penetrating wounds. The liver being lacerated, and then the lung. And Celeste's body had decomposed such that the ME couldn't definitively say whether it was a stab wound, whether it was a gunshot. Now, I think the defense really has its hands full in this case. Obviously, everyone's entitled to legal defense, including David, but without the death penalty here in California, regardless of whether he's convicted or he pleads, it will be life without the possibility of parole. That's why we're going to go through this. And it was interesting today, Ted, the defense really has only really one of three ways to play this, right? They're going to argue that it was an accidental overdose. They're going to argue, seemingly, some of it came out during cross today, that she killed herself, or it's a third-party culpability defense. Defense isn't going to reveal its hands, but there was some cross-examination on the first two of the medical examiner today, which was interesting.
And Silva, the decomposition does lend the defense to open up these possibilities. He's a up-and-coming singer. He's already making millions, a young man. You know, for people that watch someone from afar, oh, this very popular singer making millions, he's probably got people around him. Maybe it was one of them who was doing this as a favor. Maybe he didn't do it. The decomposition of the body is significant, is it not, for the state as they march forward?
Absolutely. And Nima said it too. Look, the defense has a huge hill to climb, but there are minor openings. And it's exactly what you said, Ted, the decomposition. The body was so decomposed. When you can't actually pinpoint how this young girl was murdered, then it opens up the defense theory that, think about it, why would David, in the height of his career, with all these contracts coming to him, all of these sponsorships, why would he himself kill this young girl when he has everyone around him and he's constantly being watched? They have a couple of other things that came out. Again, no murder weapon. There were 3 saws that were found, but they did not find DNA on it, and a 4th chainsaw was missing. There are things that the defense can argue. You know, we know the prosecution put this forward that David was in that Tesla and was driving that Tesla, and they have all these accounts of where the Tesla went, but not direct video showing him actually leaving the scene, which everything in that Tesla is recorded. So there are little aspects that can be fought by the defense, but it is overwhelming, the prosecution, what they're putting out there. I thought another thing that was huge was that the plastic pool parts that were found on Celeste's decomposing body, it fit like puzzle pieces in the pool that was found, that plastic pool that allegedly David had ordered from Amazon or one of those websites. It fit perfectly into the pool that was found at the scene of David's house. So there are some unmistakably very difficult pieces of evidence that the defense will have to work through. But there are little holes that they can try to manipulate. And again, in Los Angeles, they can always attack the evidence gathering process, which is what a really great defense attorney is going to do to try to mitigate the damaging evidence that was found.
The decision by the state to go all in on this prelim, Nima, getting over that bars doesn't require all that they're doing. Your thoughts on that strategy?
Yeah, I was surprised that they're presenting so much because, like you said, it is a really low standard probable cause. And originally, the defense and Blair Burke, who's very good, very well respected, she didn't waive time. And we thought we were going to have a prelim right away. So Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman of the Major Crimes Unit was scrambling. But boy, I mean, they were ready. And I still don't think we're done yet. I still think this is going to continue till early next week. We're going to see video evidence because, like Silva said, we know Teslas have videos. We know the Hollywood Hills home that David was renting has videos because the owner came out and told the public that he gave those videos to law enforcement. So expect there to be video. Expect that to come out, if not during the prelim, during the trial. I also expect a lot of messages because, like I said, I got teenagers. David was young. I'm sure he was communicating with Celeste via Snap, text, DM. That's all going to come out on Monday, and I think it's going to be even worse for the defense when it does.
Yeah, they've already had some photos of her engaged in sexual activities with apparently David. So lots being shown by this in this prelim. Nima, have a great weekend. Silva's going to stick around. We're going to get a break. When we come back to Georgia, more of the sentencing today. Stay with us.